I'm doing this video, believe it or not, because I happen to know the deepest, darkest national secret and I want to tell it to you. There's a few difficulties I encounter in the telling of this secret, so please indulge me and allow me to speak about a couple of those difficulties for just a moment before I get to the secret itself. The most difficult part about making this video is that, as you might guess, the deepest, darkest national secret is a very fascinating thing, and I could sit here and talk about it for 8 hours straight, and after those 8 hours, I wouldn't have run out of relevant things to say. So the most difficult thing for me about making this video is figuring out what to exclude. For example, I've put quite a bit of time and effort into this, so that not only do I know the secret better than anyone else, but I also know the objections that can be offered to it better than anyone else. So valuing your time above all things as I do, and thus valuing brevity above all things as much as I would like to, I'm not going to address the objections. So, taking brevity seriously, I'll address only one further difficulty that I have, and that's this, which is this video really should be a written document rather than a video, but bringing it to the widest audience possible is more important than anything else. So, for today at least, it's a video, and perhaps I'll offer it in writing in the future. Okay, let's get to the secret itself then, and the secret itself is that the Supreme Court of the United States does not understand the consequences of erasing the Constitution. The example that I want to use to understand this concept is the case Terry v. Ohio. Terry v. Ohio famously erases the phrase probable cause from the Fourth Amendment. And the secret is what is done to the next guy to come along, the guy with the next case, the guy that the executive branch thinks is going to pencil the Constitution back in. And this being my theory, it falls to me then to give this guy a moniker, and I've chosen the name Jerry because it rhymes with Terry. And if I may, allow me to explain this concept just a bit further. Jerry is a theoretical construct. It's the name given, the name that I've given to any citizen that the executive branch thinks is going to pencil the Constitution back in. In order to understand the secret, in order to understand my theory, you have to understand the concept of Jerry. And it is very easily understood, and if you're looking at the whiteboard, this guy is Jerry, okay? So Mr. Terry's case, Terry v. Ohio, erases the phrase probable cause from the Constitution, and what you need to understand is that's very beneficial to the executive branch. The executive branch does not want the phrase probable cause penciled back into the Constitution, for the simple fact that that would be an incredible pain in their ass. Now, what you also need to understand is that prosecutors, they may work in courtrooms, but they are not a part of the judiciary, they're a part of the executive branch. And what you have to realize is the executive branch is exactly who doesn't want the Constitution being penciled back in, and also that they have the power to prevent it from being penciled back in. And how can they prevent it? They can prevent it by attacking Jerry, by preying upon Jerry. And I use that word prey, let's pray with an E. How could this be done? Well, they could kill Jerry, they could hurt Jerry, they could threaten Jerry, they could set his bond at $1 million, keep him in jail for years on end, surround him with wiretaps, gather as much intel as possible to use against him, and then, worst case scenario, drop the case at any given time, and they can do that no questions asked. And in that way, Jerry's case has been prevented from reaching the Supreme Court, and that's all that matters to the executive branch. And Justice Jackson, in a case called Helvering v. Griffiths, talks about the Supreme Court's ability to free itself from error, and he notes that the Supreme Court can free itself from error only when a new case is properly brought before it. And so what I'm doing today is talking about this impropriety. And what you have to realize is that this impropriety is treason. And moreover, not only is it treason, but it is a successful treason. And there's a quotation that I love to help us understand this. It comes from an essay entitled The Meaning of Treason by Rebecca West. She writes of a man named William Joyce, a British traitor, and this is what she says of William Joyce. He had committed crimes against the law out of his desire to substitute a criminal state for a state which, if not completely innocent, at least aimed at the innocence of freedom. And that's what we have here. The executive branch has substituted a criminal state for a state which, if not completely innocent, at least aimed at the innocence of freedom. And they're able to do so by lashing out at Jerry, by striking at Jerry, by attacking him. And by this practice, the executive has felled the judiciary. The judiciary has been toppled by this treason. What you have to understand is the Supreme Court exists now only in a puppet capacity. The great way to think of it is that the Supreme Court consists of 9 imbecile child princes playing judiciary, falsely assured of their review power, in exactly the same way that an imbecile child prince is idiotically assured of his sovereignty, of his potency. And if we are to turn to the works of mankind to better understand this concept, a very great help comes to us from Rostand's play La Aiglon, which is about the idiot son of Napoleon, Napoleon II, who is a child prince who, like a fool, considers himself a sovereign, but is nothing more than a puppet to the scheming Metternich, who is a man famed and remembered throughout history, and who is the man actually in control. So in the analogy, Metternich plays the part of the executive branch, and Napoleon II is played by the Supreme Court. And I want to finish by bringing this concept into the concrete, and that can be done by reading Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's concurrence in U.S. v. Hubbell. In that concurrence, Justice Thomas tells us that there's real reason to believe that the Fifth Amendment is much weaker than it should be, and that he would like to review the Fifth Amendment with an eye towards its convalescence, towards its being penciled back in. And what you have to realize is that the executive branch will stop at nothing in order to prevent Justice Thomas from exercising that power. And all they have to do in order to do so is prey upon Jerry. Read that concurrence and realize Justice Thomas is asking for the Jerry case. And I would remind you that while you're reading, keep in mind that idea of the boastful, pompous, idiot child prince who wrongly considers himself a sovereign. So in light of my theory, Justice Thomas in Hubbell is saying, I'd like to hear the Jerry case. And you can just imagine an idiot child prince with the full regalia and crown and everything, and the courtliness and everything, and that he would deign to offer his princely decree on the Fifth Amendment. And what we know now is that we can retort, please spare us, you fucking idiot, because the best we know, they're out there killing that guy because of your bird brain. Best we can tell, they're planting that guy's DNA at a postman murder to get him executed in Terre Haute. So today, what I'm doing is informing the citizenry that if the executive branch thinks you're the guy who's going to pencil the Constitution back in, if the executive branch thinks you're the guy who Justice Thomas is looking for, that might well get you killed. That might well get you thrown in jail without trial. That might well get you publicly defamed. That might well get your life ruined. If the executive branch thinks you're the guy who Justice Thomas is looking for, that is about as much danger as you can be in the world. So if you are ever in a position where you think that you might have a case that is going to pencil the Constitution back in, that means you've become a Jerry. And if that's the case, then watch out, because Justice Thomas's numbnuts are going to fuck your life up. And I would say to Justice Thomas himself, your princely idiocies aside, this is Jubilee treason any way you slice it. This treason is enough to get every inmate in the country released, because an inmate is due judicial review. They are not due the treason precedents. An inmate is due a Supreme Court, not a panel of 9 imbecile puppet princes. And so what you have to realize is that this treason poisons the entire case record. And so that is why this treason is enough to get every inmate in the country released, because an inmate is due judicial review, not the treason precedents, and an inmate is due a Supreme Court, not a panel of 9 imbecile puppet child princes.